The courtroom laughed. Not loud, just enough for the sound to slice through the silence like a blade. A chuckle from the back row, a scoff from the defense table. The judge didn't look up. Elena Brooks stood alone before the bench, the only black woman in a room lined with white suits and marble coldness. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled beneath the table where no one could see. She'd built Brooks Analytics from nothing. 10 years, 70 employees, contracts with Fortune 500s, but this morning, she wasn't a CEO. She was the woman who filed a discrimination suit and lost. The opposing counsel smirked. "Ms. Brooks," he said, drawing out her name like an insult. "Perhaps next time you'll think twice before accusing your betters." A few muffled laughs. The sound hit her harder than the gavel that followed. Case dismissed. Her lawyer whispered something, legal jargon, appeals, timelines, but the words drowned in the ringing in her ears. The firm she'd sued, Haldren and Cole, had not only beaten her in court, they'd humiliated her in public. The verdict would echo across boardrooms by morning. The black CEO who overreached, the woman who didn't know her place. Elena turned, slow and deliberate. Cameras flashed. She met the smirk of Richard Haldren, the senior partner, the man who'd once promised to mentor her before cutting her out of a merger deal. His lips barely moved. Should have stayed quiet, she didn't answer. Not yet. Outside thunder rolled, low, distant, inevitable. She stepped into the rain without an umbrella. Somewhere inside her the laugh replayed sharp as glass, and it was in that sound, not the verdict, that she decided what would come next. Rain smeared the courthouse steps into a blur of black umbrellas and camera flashes. Elena Brooks walked through them like a ghost. Every lens followed, waiting for a stumble, a tear, a headline. She gave them nothing. Her face was marble, her stride precise, until the microphones caught up. "Ms. Brooks, any comment on the verdict? Do you regret filing the suit? Did you overreact to workplace disagreements?" The last question stung. Disagreements, that word again. She pushed past them, shoes sliding slightly on the wet stone, and didn't stop until she reached the black sedan waiting by the curb. Inside, her lawyer spoke softly. "We can appeal. There's precedent, Elena, we just need—" She cut him off. "We need money. We don't have any left." Silence. The city rolled by. Gray towers, blank faces, billboards selling equality. The hypocrisy pressed against the glass. At her office, the security guard wouldn't meet her eyes. The nameplate, Brooks Analytics CAG, was half unscrewed. She pushed through the double doors. Empty desks. Half-packed boxes. The hum of machines already unplugged. On her desk lay an envelope. Final notice, lease termination. Her throat tightened. She picked up the photo beside it. Her first team, smiling under fluorescent light, full of belief. She'd hired them from places that never gave second chances. Now they were gone, a soft knock. Her assistant Lila stood hesitating. "Elena, I think I need to resign." Elena looked up. "They threatened you?" Lila nodded. "Not directly, just, no one will hire me if I stay." Elena didn't beg, didn't argue, just nodded once. "Go ahead." When the door closed, the silence was absolute. She sat staring at her reflection in the glass wall, a woman erased by her own city. For a moment her composure cracked. They laughed. Her phone buzzed. A notification. Richard Haldren trending, champion of corporate mentorship. Her hand shook, then stilled. She leaned back, whispering to no one, "You think it's over?" Outside, thunder rolled again. It wasn't. The chandelier light shimmered like ice over the gala crowd. Crystal laughter, champagne bubbles, and the sharp scent of money. Elena shouldn't have been there, not after what they'd done, but the invitation had been public. Declining would have been seen as weakness. She arrived in a black dress that made no apologies. The whispers began immediately. "That's her, the CEO who lost the case. Still showing up? Bold. Bold or desperate, every word brushed her skin like static. She didn't drink, didn't smile. She was there to be seen, not to be consumed. Across the ballroom, Richard Haldren was surrounded by admirers, his laughter smooth and photogenic. A banner above him read, "Haldren and Cole Charity Gala, Empowering Inclusion." The irony was surgical. He spotted her before she could turn away. His grin widened and he began walking toward her, flanked by board members and a journalist. "Elena Brooks," he greeted, voice warm enough to curdle milk. "Good to see you out in public again," she matched his smile. "Richard, I didn't expect you'd recognize me without a judge present." A few polite laughs, uneasy like glass about to crack. The journalist raised her recorder. "Mr. Haldren, I hear your firm's mentorship program for minority entrepreneurs has doubled this year." Richard glanced at Elena, holding the silence long enough to make it sting. "It has," he said. "We're always willing to guide those who learn from experience." Elena's fingers tightened around her clutch. "Some experiences," she replied evenly, "teach you exactly who you're dealing with." He smiled again, that perfect politician's smile. Always the sharp tongue. "You could have gone far with us, you know." "I did go far," she said. "Until you cut the wire." The journalist blinked, sensing heat beneath civility. Richard chuckled. "Water under the bridge. The industry's small. No need to dwell on the past." "Funny," she said, her voice low. "The past keeps sending invoices." He turned away with a dismissive pat on her arm, his gesture condescending, intimate, invasive. "Take care, Elena. Resilience looks good on you." She froze as he walked off, laughter trailing behind him like perfume. A waiter approached with champagne. She took her glass, not to drink, just to hold something cold. Her reflection shimmered in the liquid, tired, proud, defiant. A woman she barely recognized slid beside her. Sandra Voss, former colleague, now one of Richard's public defenders in court. "You shouldn't have come," Sandra murmured. "He's already warning people not to touch your name." "Let him warn them," Elena said. "Fear's his favorite language," Sandra hesitated. "He's courting your investors. Says your data division might still have value." Elena's stomach tightened. "He's buying what's left of me." Sandra lowered her voice. "You didn't hear that from me." Then, softer, "You should leave before the cameras start circling." Elena placed the untouched champagne on the tray. "No, let them see me." She crossed the floor slowly, deliberately, through clusters of expensive perfume and false laughter, until she reached the wall of donors' portraits. Her photo had once been there, listed under Brooks Analytics, strategic partner. Now there was a blank square. The brass plaque beneath it had been replaced, reserved for future sponsorship. Something inside her, and small and precise, shifted. She didn't belong in this room. But she would make sure none of them ever forgot the night she did. When she left the gala, the city air felt cleaner, colder, a different kind of clarity. Back in her car, she sat in silence. Her reflection in the window was ghosted by skyscraper lights, one fading, the other still burning. Her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "You were right about him. We need to talk." She stared at it, heartbeat steadying. Malik, her former data engineer, the one she thought had disappeared. She typed back only one word. "When?" The reply came instantly, "Tomorrow night." Not safe to call. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. The game had just restarted, and this time she wasn't coming to plead. She was coming to burn. Morning came without light. The blinds were half closed, and the city outside pulsed with muted sirens. Elena sat at her kitchen counter, a half-empty cup of coffee cooling beside a pile of unopened mail. Final notices. Account freezes. Lawsuit threats. Every envelope carried the same tone. Polite extinction. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification from a news site. Haldren and Cole expands diversity initiative after record win in court. She turned the phone face down. The sound of her own heartbeat filled the silence. The apartment still looked like success, only framed awards, modern art, the kind of glass furniture that demanded confidence. But it all felt counterfeit now, a showroom for someone else's life, a soft knock. Her landlord. "Ms. Brooks, I hate to do this." "Then don't," he sighed. "It's just—" Your corporate guarantor backed out. Without that, the renewal's off the table. She stared at him until he dropped his gaze. "You mean Haldren and Cole?" He hesitated. "They sponsor a lot in this district." She almost laughed. "Of course they do." When he left, she finally opened her laptop. 17 unread emails from investors. All brief. All polite. "We appreciate your efforts. Unfortunately, after recent developments, We'll be redirecting our partnership. She scrolled to the last one, the only one that hurt. From David Chen. David had been her first investor, her silent believer when no one else trusted her numbers. Elena, you know I admire you, but Richard's firm is offering to absorb your research team under their compliance branch. It could save jobs. I think you should consider signing over the assets. She read the line twice, save jobs. As if the work mattered more than the hands that built it. She closed the laptop. Hard. Hours later, she walked through what remained of Brooks Analytics. The locks had been changed, but her old key still turned the handle. Inside, stripped desks, unplugged servers, cables coiled like veins cut loose. The echo of something that used to breathe. She ran her fingers along the whiteboard, faint marker stains spelling fragments of old strategy notes. Client integration, equity access, proof of data ownership, all dead languages now. She sank into the chair that had once been hers and let the silence talk. It said, "You fought fair." They didn't. Her phone lit up, a voice message from an old colleague. She played it. "Hey, Elena, just wanted to say I can't publicly back you right now. The firm's blacklisting anyone who does. You understand, right? I have kids." She deleted it before it finished. The second message came minutes later, a podcast notification. The host's voice was crisp, cheerful. "Tonight we spotlight Richard Haldren, visionary leader redefining inclusion in corporate law." Her jaw tightened. Every word scraped. Redefining inclusion. She pressed pause. The apartment went still again, except for the faint hum of traffic below. She poured another coffee, though she didn't need it. What she needed was noise, something to fill the space between fury and despair. But nothing came. Instead, she stared out the window at the city, glass, concrete, clouds, and realized she was watching the machine that had eaten her life. Her company had been data, numbers, facts, fairness quantified. But fairness didn't sell. Control did, and Richard understood that better than anyone. Her reflection in the glass looked hollow, older. The rain streaked down her faces, shadow-like tears she wouldn't allow. Then, her phone buzzed again, a message from the same unknown number as, "Before tomorrow, 9 p.m., Old Foundry. Cafe, bring no one, Malik again," she typed. "You sure it's safe?" No reply. Just the blinking dots. Then nothing. She waited. Then exhaled slowly, setting the phone down. Her apartment was silent again, the kind of silence that precedes something irreversible. Elena leaned against the window, eyes tracing the skyline she once believed she'd conquered. Her voice was barely a whisper. "If they built the system to bury me, I'll dig until it collapses." The words felt heavier than any verdict. Thunder murmured somewhere distant. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was movement, the kind that starts before anyone else notices. The Old Foundry Cafe sat on the edge of the industrial district, a place that smelled of rust, espresso, and secrecy. Its flickering neon sign read open, but the inside was mostly empty. Elena entered quietly, scanning the corners. Malik sat in the far booth, hoodie pulled low, laptop open beside a mug gone cold. When he looked up, she saw the exhaustion in his eyes, but also something else. Purpose. "Did anyone follow you?" he asked. She gave a faint smirk. "Not unless the paparazzi started caring about corporate ghosts." He slid a flash drive across the table. "I copied everything before they locked me out. Internal memos, client bribes, data manipulation logs. Enough to bury them." Elena hesitated before touching it. "If this is what I think it is, it's dangerous to even have." Malik leaned forward. "They destroyed your company. They used racial quotas as PR cover, while fixing contracts to keep minority firms subservient. This," he tapped the drive, "is proof." Her throat tightened. "Why come forward now?" "Because you were right," he said. "And because I was too scared before." Their silence carried years of betrayal, of watching injustice turn into decorum. She finally picked up the flash drive. It felt heavier than it should. "What do you want me to do with it?" "Get it to someone who can't be bought," Elena exhaled. "That's a short list." Malik pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket, a name and number scrawled in pencil. "Lydia Tran, investigative journalist, The Chronicle." She's been trying to expose Haldren's diversity laundering for years. If you talk, she'll listen. Elena studied the name. And if she doesn't? Then you leak it yourself. He stood to leave but paused. Be careful. They've already traced me once. My apartment got inspected 2 nights ago. Her stomach turned. By who? He met her eyes. By people who didn't need badges. She slipped the flash drive into her coat pocket. Then we move fast. That night, Elena sat at her kitchen table again, laptop open, cursor blinking like a pulse. The journalist's contact form felt like a trap, but she typed anyway. This isn't about revenge. It's about truth. If you're still chasing Haldren, I have proof of systemic fraud under his mentorship programs. I'll talk if we can meet off record. She hesitated before pressing send. Once she did, there would be no taking it back. Click. Message sent. Minutes later, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. This is Lydia Tran, tomorrow. 7 p.m. East River Park. Bring nothing digital. Elena leaned back, heart pounding. The park was nearly empty the next evening. The wind off the water was sharp and the skyline burned gold in the sunset. Lydia Tran arrived without introduction. Short hair, camera bag slung across her shoulder, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. You really are her, Lydia said, stopping a few feet away. I watched your trial. That laugh in the courtroom. It's still trending in legal memes. Elena's expression didn't move. Then let's give them something better to share. Lydia gestured for her to sit. Tell me everything. Elena spoke for nearly an hour. About the merger fraud, the fabricated evidence, the boardroom gaslighting that started when she questioned client quotas. Lydia recorded on analog tape, not digital. Old school caution. Finally, Elena slid the flash drive across the bench. Everything's here. Memos, edits, timestamps. Lydia hesitated. If this checks out, it's not just a story. It's a bomb. That's the point. Lydia studied her. You realize they'll come after you again. Legally, personally. Maybe worse. I lost everything already. Lydia nodded slowly. All right. I'll vet it. If it's solid, the story drops under federal protection. You won't be quoted by name. Not yet. Elena rose. Make sure it's not another headline that fades. I don't do fading, Lydia replied. 2 days later, the first story appeared online. Exclusive. Haldren and Cole accused of falsifying diversity contracts. Screenshots of internal memos blurred but legible. Dates, signatures, patterns. The evidence was damning. Within hours, the firm released a statement. Baseless allegations by disgruntled former employees. We remain committed to equality. Corporate doublespeak. The same tone that had crushed her in court. But this time something was different. The comment section burned with anger. Anonymous employees began leaking more files. Whistleblower threads flooded social media. Elena watched it all unfold in silence, pulse steady. Malik texted, "They're panicking. One of the partners resigned this morning." She typed back, "Good. It's starting." For the first time in months, she felt the faint rhythm of justice. Slow, imperfect but real. Then late that night, another message from an unknown number appeared. You shouldn't have done that, no signature. Her stomach clenched. She closed the blinds, checked the locks, and sat in the dark. The rain began again. Soft and steady, she whispered to herself, "Let it come." The headline had exploded across every feed, every timeline, every corporate inbox. By dawn, Haldren and Cole's statement was plastered on all major news outlets. A coordinated defamation effort, the firm declared. No verified source, no wrongdoing. And then came the counterstrike. Within 24 hours, 3 anonymous blogs published hit pieces about Elena Brooks. Ex-CEO shows pattern of erratic behavior. Sources question Brooks. Mental stability after business collapse. Screenshots from her old social media posts taken out of context. Photos from her court appearance labeled unstable. A private email between her and a former investor suddenly leaked, edited to make her sound paranoid. By noon, her name was trending again, this time under Nawadwire Brooks breakdown. Elena sat motionless on her couch, staring at the headlines. Malik's voice came through the phone, sharp with panic. They're framing you as a liar, Elena. Their PR team's in full swing. They've got bots, fake accounts, everything. I expected this, she said quietly. They can't fight the truth, so they'll fight the storyteller. Lydia's scared, Malik said. She thinks her paper might pull the piece. Tell her to hold the line. I'll try. But she says she's getting calls from federal contacts. Friendly threats. Someone doesn't want this growing. Elena rubbed her temples. The fatigue was physical now. Her bones felt heavy. Let them threaten. Truth doesn't negotiate. That night she walked through downtown alone. Posters of Haldren's smiling face hung from billboards. Integrity, leadership, vision. She almost laughed. The same man who had destroyed her name was now selling morality. A black car slowed beside her. Tinted windows, engine idling. The backseat window rolled down halfway. Richard Haldren. Elena, he called out smoothly, voice carrying across the noise. You've been busy, she stopped, hands in her coat pockets. You're watching my every move. I must be worth more than you thought, he smiled faintly. You've made quite a mess. These leaks, sloppy work, dangerous for everyone. Dangerous for you, she said. He sighed. You're ruining your life over pride. You should have taken the settlement when I offered it. Her jaw clenched. You offered silence, not peace. His tone cooled. You don't understand how this world works. You don't win by shouting racism. You win by playing along. Elena took one step closer, her reflection glinting in the glass. You mean by kneeling? He didn't answer. Just looked at her, calculating, amused. You've got 48 hours before we file for defamation. After that, nothing you say will matter. The window rolled up. The car pulled away. She stood there for a long moment, the exhaust cloud curling through the air like smoke from a gun. The next morning, Lydia called. They're threatening my editor, she said without greeting. Cease and desist letters, financial blackmail. They want me to retract the story. Will you? Elena asked. No, but my paper might. Then go independent, Elena said flatly. Leak the next batch yourself. You have the proof, Lydia hesitated. You'll lose plausible deniability. They'll name you as the source. They already have. Silence. Then Lydia's voice softened. You know what they'll do, right? They'll dig through every moment of your life until you're nothing but a caricature. Elena's tone didn't waver. Let them dig. All they'll find is the truth. By evening, another article surfaced, this time from an independent journalist collective. New evidence links Haldren and Cole to federal contract fraud. The tone was colder, factual, surgical, memos, invoices, timelines. The storm was spreading. Malik messaged again. They can't contain it anymore. Clients are suspending deals. Internal panic confirmed. Elena typed, good, let it bleed. He replied, be careful. They'll come after you directly now. She didn't respond. That night she received an email from an unknown address. No greeting. No subject. Just a link. She hovered over it, then copied it into a sandbox browser. It opened to a leaked internal chat between Haldren and his PR chief. Brooks needs to be discredited permanently. Push the instability narrative. Contact Chen. Remind him of the NDAs. Her pulse quickened. She printed it out, each line like a matchstick ready to ignite. The next day, the leak was public. Lydia's doing. The chat log spread fast, undeniable. TV anchors debated corruption and systemic bias. Protesters gathered outside Haldren and Cole's glass tower. Banners read, Justice for Brooks and no more silent firms. The same marble steps where Elena had once been humiliated now echoed with chanting voices. From her apartment window she watched it all. Not triumph, not relief, just gravity. Her phone rang. Malik again. They're filing emergency motions, but it's falling apart. Partners are jumping ship. One of them just went on record confirming the fake diversity contracts. Elena's voice was low. It's starting to crack. He exhaled shakily. You did it. No, she said. We just opened the wound. She ended the call and stared at the rain outside. Her reflection in the glass no longer looked defeated, just tired, steady, unflinching. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. Rain lashed against the city skyline as if trying to wash something off. The grime, the guilt, the rot of the system itself. In the heart of downtown, the once impenetrable fortress of Haldren and Cole now felt like a siege target. Reporters clustered near the glass entrance, their umbrellas colliding. Microphones pointed at trembling executives. Elena Brooks watched it unfold from a coffee shop across the street. The steam from her untouched drink fogging the window, She had expected chaos, but not like this. The firm's stock had plummeted 30% overnight. 2 board members had resigned. Leaked recordings revealed Richard Haldren personally approving bribes to bypass equal opportunity audits. It was a corporate implosion in slow motion. And yet, to Elena, it all felt strangely quiet. Malik slid into the seat across from her, laptop open, rain still dripping from his jacket. "They're collapsing, Elena," he said breathlessly. "The SEC just opened a formal investigation. The firm's frozen half its accounts." Elena didn't smile. "They'll rebuild. People like him always do. The system was made for their kind." Malik shook his head. "Not this time. Haldren's name is poison now. Investors are pulling out. It's over." She turned to look at him, her eyes heavy but resolute. It's never over when someone like Haldren still breathes air. Later that afternoon, Richard Haldren walked into his office. Or what was left of it. Boxes stacked near the door. Staff moving like ghosts, whispering in corridors. His once grand empire now smelled of panic and printer ink. He sat behind his glass desk, scrolling through headlines that sliced through his pride like razors. Fraud allegations mount. Haldren under federal review. Former CEO's whistleblower vindicated. A soft knock came at the door. His assistant Marla peeked in. "Sir, the board's emergency call is in 10 minutes. He didn't look up." "Cancel it." "But sir, I said cancel it." She nodded quickly and left. Richard exhaled and leaned back, staring out at the rain. He had been the golden man once, the one they trusted to fix markets, to mentor politicians, to lecture about ethical capitalism. Now he was just another headline, another scandal in a sea of them, and yet deep down, beneath the arrogance, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. That night, Elena received another message. An encrypted one. The sender, Lydia Chen. "I have the final piece," Lydia wrote. "The recordings from the shareholder meeting. The one where they discussed silencing you." Elena's reply came fast. "Send it." Minutes later, a file downloaded, grainy audio, but the voices were unmistakable. "Brooks needs to disappear quietly," one man said. "She's too public now," another replied. "Find her weakness. Something we can leak." Then came Haldren's voice, low, cold, clinical. "If she wants a war, give her one she can't survive." Elena sat there in silence, headphones still on. It wasn't just evidence, and it was a confession. She forwarded it to Lydia with one line: "Release it at dawn." By morning, the world knew everything. The recordings hit every platform. Hashtags trended again. Church Haldren exposed. Brooks was right. Justice leaks. The Department of Justice released a statement confirming the investigation had expanded to criminal charges. TV anchors replayed the audio again and again. Viewers heard Haldren's voice threaten a black woman who had simply refused to kneel. That sound, cold and undeniable, broke something in the public's faith. The firm's tower, once a symbol of power, became a crime scene. Agents carried out boxes of documents. Drones hovered for footage. Former employees, once silent, began testifying one by one. Elena watched it all from a distance, her hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from release. For years she had lived beneath the weight of someone else's lie. Now the lie was burning and the truth was free. Malik called her, voice cracking with disbelief. "You did it, Elena. They can't touch you anymore. You're vindicated." She didn't speak right away. Then finally, "I didn't want revenge, Malik. I wanted proof that I wasn't crazy. That what happened to me was real." "It was real," he said softly, "and now everyone knows." Days later, Richard Haldren appeared before the cameras, not in his tailored suit, but in handcuffs. Flashes lit his face as agents escorted him through the lobby. Someone shouted his name. Another yelled, "What do you have to say to Elena Brooks?" He didn't answer. He didn't look up. For the first time in his life, the world didn't wait for his response. A week passed. The protests faded. The noise quieted. Justice, once loud and furious, settled into paperwork and court dates. Elena walked alone through the same marble hall where her career had died 3 years earlier. The plaque still bore his name. The same floors where security once dragged her out now reflected her steady steps. She paused at the main lobby, where sunlight streamed through the glass. She placed a folded document on the reception desk. Her testimony, signed and dated. For the record. For history. And then she walked out. Outside, Malik was waiting. You could have sold your story, he said. TV deals, documentaries? You'd make millions, Elena shook her head. I didn't fight for fame. I fought to breathe again. He smiled faintly. So what now? She looked out over the city, rain-washed, weary but alive. I start something new. A consultancy. A space for women who've been shut out like I was. He nodded. A legacy built from ashes. She turned toward him, the corner of her mouth lifting just slightly. No, not ashes. Proof that fire can purify too. That night, in a quiet apartment lit only by the city glow, Elena opened her laptop. A blank page stared back. At the top she typed, Black CEO, the cost of truth. Then she began to write, not a statement, not a press release, but a testimony of survival. Not vengeance, but witness. Outside, the rain finally stopped. A year later, the city no longer whispered the name Haldren and Cole with reverence. The letters had been scraped from the tower's glass facade, leaving only faint ghost marks of arrogance past. In their place stood a new plaque, the Brooks Initiative, legal empowerment for women of color. The marble floors gleamed again, but not with fear. Now the building pulsed with life, interns with bright eyes, advocates from across the country, young lawyers who carried notebooks instead of grudges. And at the center of it all, Elena Brooks walked the corridors she had once been thrown out of. Her steps were unhurried, her voice steady. Ms. Brooks, a young intern called, rushing to her with a folder. We got the final approval for the mentorship fund. They want you to speak at the conference next month. Elena accepted the folder, flipping it open. The numbers blurred briefly before her eyes, not from fatigue but from something deeper, disbelief. It was all real now. The pain, the loss, the fight, all translated into something tangible. Good work, she said softly. Send my thanks to the committee. The intern smiled and hurried away. Elena lingered by the office window, watching the city breathe. Below, the traffic hummed like a living artery. She could see the courthouse from here, the same one where her voice had once been drowned out by laughter. She whispered to no one. You hear me now? Later that evening, she met Malik at a small rooftop bar overlooking the skyline. He raised a glass. To poetic justice. Elena gave a faint laugh. There's no such thing as poetic justice. Just justice. Messy, delayed, and never enough. He tilted his head. Still, you built something out of it. You gave the fire direction. She took a sip of water, the city lights dancing across the glass. Do you ever think about what it cost? Every day. He leaned closer. But if you hadn't taken that stand, none of this would exist. Elena looked out over the edge, the wind tugging at her hair. Sometimes I wonder if the world even changes or if it just sheds old skin to grow new lies. Malik smiled, not to dismiss her, but because he'd expected that line from her. Maybe change doesn't happen all at once. Maybe it happens through people like you who refuse to stay silent. She didn't answer, but for a brief moment she allowed herself to believe him. That night, Elena attended a memorial gala, not for victims, but for survivors. Women and men who had spoken out, lost careers, faced backlash, and kept moving anyway. The host, a civil rights attorney named Dr. Aisha Monroe, called Elena to the stage. As she walked up, applause filled the hall, not the hollow kind from courtrooms or corporate events, but something raw and grateful. At the podium, Elena paused before speaking. The lights were warm against her face. The microphone hummed softly. I used to think justice was a verdict, she began. A day in court, a ruling. A punishment. She let the silence stretch. But I've learned that justice is sometimes just survival. The courage to wake up again after you've been told you don't belong. The strength to keep telling your story until someone finally listens. Her voice caught briefly, but she steadied it. I lost everything I thought defined me. My job, my reputation, my peace. But what I gained was truth, and that's something no court can hand down. The room was silent. Then a single clap broke the stillness, and then another and another until the hall roared with it. For once, applause didn't sound like validation. It sounded like solidarity. Afterward, she stepped outside into the night. The air was cool. The city lights shimmered across wet pavement. a soft reflection of everything she'd endured. She stood there quietly until a voice called out behind her. It was Lydia Chen, her old ally from the newsroom. "You disappeared after the story broke," Lydia said, walking up beside her. "You could have run for office, you know," Elena smirked. "That's exactly why I didn't," Lydia chuckled. "Fair. Still, I read your essay last month, The Cost of Truth. It's being cited in law schools now. That's not why I wrote it. I know. But it's changing how people see whistleblowers." "You gave them a face." Elena looked at her, eyes softening. "Then maybe it was worth it." Lydia hesitated before adding, "You ever hear from him?" Elena didn't need to ask who him was. She shook her head. "Haldren's been sentenced. 2 years for obstruction, 10 for fraud. He'll be out before he learns a thing." Lydia sighed. "And yet you're still standing." Elena's voice was quiet but firm. "Because I learned something he never did. Power without conscience always collapses." Later, alone at home, Elena sat at her desk again. Her laptop glowed faintly in the dark. A new document blinked open. Chapter 2, Rebuilding the System. She typed slowly at first, her fingers hesitating between thoughts. For every woman silenced, another listens. For every door closed, another will break it down. The system doesn't change because it feels guilty. It changes because someone refuses to play by its rules anymore. She paused, then added, "That's what I learned in the courtroom. The laughter that day wasn't power. It was fear pretending to be power. And fear, when exposed, doesn't survive the light." The clock ticked past midnight. Outside, the city hummed quietly, unaware that history, real, small, invisible history, was being written in that little apartment. Elena leaned back, eyes closing for a moment. She thought of her grandmother's voice, the one that always said, "They can't erase you if you write yourself into the story." So she did. She pressed save, stood up and walked to the window. Below, a billboard flickered faintly with her initiative's logo, the Brooks Foundation, Rewriting Power. Elena watched the light steady, her reflection blending with the city's glow. The world wasn't fixed. It never would be. But somewhere between ruin and resilience, she had found peace. Final line. They laughed when she stood alone in court. Now the whole world stands where she once did, unafraid to speak.